Welcome to Smartsheet ENGAGE here in lovely Seattle, Washington. I'm Dave Nicholson with 6.5 Media on the road, and I've got a very special guest, Mr. Frank Geraci, president of Kronos. Frank, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great. It's great to have you here. Well, to start out, tell us about Kronos. What does Kronos do? What are you all about?
Absolutely. So with Kronos, we provide consulting services to our customers for change management, governance, spinning up project management offices. And in all of those instances, we use Smartsheet as the tool set to support the rollout of that sort of service and provide value to our customers.
So does that mean, does that presuppose existing Smartsheet implementation that you come in and improve, or are you coming in with Smartsheet as a tool set and your services and secret sauce and implementing something from ground zero?
Both of those.
You do both?
Yeah, we do both.
Okay. Talk more about what you specifically do for folks who are using Smartsheet. There's something called Huddle from Kronos.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So during some of our implementations, we've identified the need for a more robust configuration management, version control, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
So Huddle is a tool set that we've actually configured ourselves to live as an add-on to Smartsheet. So a user would be able to connect to their Smartsheet account, build what we call a huddle. We've branded a huddle as basically a collection of artifacts that is the solution. So a huddle gives you the ability to identify all the sheets, reports, and dashboards that make up your solution that you're using in your organization, and you can track changes at the schema level. So if our sheet has specific columns or cross-sheet references, sheet summaries or automations that are critical to how we run this organization and how we provide visibility into the health of our projects and our portfolio, we want to make sure that the integrity of that architecture is in place. And if we have a lot of users that are a part of my team that will collaborate on that, we want to know that when we roll changes out, we can track those. So we provide the ability to capture versions, sort of like a Git repository, but for Smartsheet schema.
Okay.
So now when changes are rolled out, we can basically capture that snapshot in time, log the kind of message around what that version is, and always have this history of a log of all the different versions of our solution schema, not just one sheet, but the whole solution as a whole. And in the event we need to roll something back or go back to see something, we have notes and we have the ability to provide that schema that we can roll back into the solution at any point in time.
Can you give me a more specific example of how someone would leverage that capability if they had it? Or maybe even better still, what would the nightmare be? The nightmare scenario when you don't have that available? What are the kinds of things that can happen?
So I've talked to everybody on this floor and they've all have the nightmares because we live them day to day. Let's say we have a project team that manages the PMO. We have 7 people on our project team that administers the PMO solution that's running on Smartsheet. And then on the PMO side, we have the tool sets out to 200 users that are daily managing all their different tasks and activities. All that data rolls up to metric sheets, which basically a collection of data. You process it, you add formulas, you capture all that stuff, which then rolls up to dashboards. If somebody on the team of 7 makes a change to a column or to a link or to a summary field, it could drastically impact the connection or the data formula calculation that rolls up to the dashboard. So maybe in my presentation to the department heads or to the executives, my dashboard will pull up and say, #no match or invalid data type. That's the nightmare that we all sometimes have to live or worry about, because we want to make sure that our solution is always operating at peak capacity and is fully functional.
Okay, so maybe this is me searching for stuff that I think is cool because I'm kind of loving what I'm hearing you say, because what I'm hearing is you guys are out engaging with folks who are using Smartsheets and other enterprise software, and you figured out how to do really cool things, maybe just for one client at first, and you're like, you know what? This is something everybody needs.
Absolutely.
And so you have essentially, correct me if I'm out of line here, but it sounds like you have sort of programmatized, productized, however you want to describe it, a feature that you believe and customers are embracing as something that everybody needs. So configuration management, that's something. But Huddle includes Another pillar?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and what is that other thing?
Portal interfaces.
Okay.
So with the solution set that we build, typically we would provide access to the sheets or the reports or dynamic view or different components to capture inputs from the project team members or stakeholders that manage the day-to-day, right?
Okay.
Sometimes the interfaces might pose as a challenge for some users that aren't technical in nature. They might require additional training, they might require additional hand-holding, they may be reluctant to take those trainings or to take the steps to learn more, so they don't want to put their data in when it's needed. So sometimes we have to follow up on our side to make sure that that data is actually captured when we need it. In comes portal interfaces. So Huddle allows us to not only capture all the items that are part of our solution, but we can now use those artifacts as data sources that then feed a nice web page, if you want to call it that. We give users the ability to build up a site with a header banner. You could use a number of different types of widgets for list display of tasks that are assigned to me or the user that's logged in. You can have approvals. So if I were to log into my view, I can see anything that is pending my approval. I can capture conversations, discussions on those. And the beauty of it is it all lives on Smartsheet. We're just adding that exterior UI interface that gives it the simplicity and the direct access to what the user needs to do without having to go through all the columns and rows and everything.
Okay, I want to go into a little more detail on that, on just sort of the genesis of these, what I think of as two pillars of Huddle. But first, so people don't have to wait, how does someone engage with you if this sounds like something that they would like to implement in their Smartsheet world? What does that look like? Is it a services engagement? Is it software licensing? How do they get a hold of you? It's Kronos with a C. Is it Cronos Consulting?
It's Cronos Consulting Group.
Okay, okay.
And we provide a multitude of services. We can do consulting. We can help with building out what those solutions might look like. If you're more mature in your organization and you might have those existing solutions, but you feel the need to add configuration management or simplify the UI to make a portal that's easy for non-technical stakeholders, there's a multitude of angles that you can.
But they're engaged. It's a services engagement.
Right.
They're bringing you're not bringing in somebody dumb with a floppy, if you remember what those are.
Yeah.
You're bringing in smart people who know Smartsheets. They know your stuff, and they can get the work done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so back to kind of the genesis of this. When you talk about the portal interface, is that?
Right, it's a portal interface.
Yeah, when you talk about the portal interface part of this versus configuration management, are those two things completely distinct? I think you connected the dots between you're doing this configuration management, so you have access to this information. An offshoot of that is this idea of making it more accessible to non-power users. Was that an offshoot? Or was this a completely separate thing that you also discovered in becoming expert in working with Smartsheet customers? How did that? Are those attached, or are those separate things under a single umbrella?
I personally believe they are attached.
Okay.
Because Smartsheet provides immense value, automation workflows, reporting, visibility, security, anything you can imagine. But to be a true enterprise application that provides value at the enterprise level for different departments, for different use cases, for different functions, being able to track and maintain version control for what your solution is critical. We're all developers, whether we like to think so or not. We need to follow best practices for how we develop product. And our product sometimes might be code-based, or it might be no code, like on Smartsheet. So I think implementing some of those practices where we have configuration management and going through those capture processes where we can establish a version and then maintain a repository of versions is at a foundational level needed for every single solution for every single customer. Now the need for portals, while some might think it to be a nice to have, I think it's also critical, because if we have a tool that is being used by a small subset of users that are willing to learn and adapt and want to be a part of the Smartsheet solution, that's great. But with a UI that is intuitive, like a mobile app, you can now expand the reach to a larger audience in the organization to bring that tool set the automation that you put into Smartsheet behind the scenes, you could bring that value to every stakeholder in the organization for a specific purpose.
Okay, so you're putting you're putting an abstraction layer in front of the Smartsheet smarts.
That's correct.
That makes all of that power more accessible to users that it might not be accessible to. So with the couple of minutes we have left, I want to pretend like we were talking beforehand. You mentioned that you've done some running. Let's say we meet, we do some trail running together, and you casually learn that yeah, my company uses Smartsheet. What would the questions be that you would ask me to qualify me as someone who might be interested? It's like, I think you're a great guy, Frank. What do you guys do? Well,
Yeah.
hold on a second. I know you need a
Absolutely.
Smartsheet, but let's figure out if maybe there is something we can do for you. What would you ask about my Smartsheet implementation, my environment,
Absolutely.
that would equal the sound of, wow, we can do something for you?
So for any use case you might have, you're using Smartsheet for something.
Right?
I would ask you, how many people do you have on your team that manage that solution for your organization? And you might say 1, 2, 5, 7, 9.
Right.
And you'd say, oh, okay, great. And I say, how do you know who makes a change and how it impacts your solution? And you would say,
We don't. We like to live
don't.
dangerously.
We like to live
Okay.
dangerously. I like to jump out of planes without a
I like-
parachute. It's so much fun. So in order to protect the integrity of the architecture of the solution, I would say this gives you not necessarily control, because we can provide permissions at the role level to prevent people from making changes, but let's say you have several admins, right? We want to be able to capture those changes, annotate them, and then
Okay.
have the ability to revert them back. So I would ask that question initially to kind of open up that wound,
Okay. Right. yeah.
drive
yeah,
into
yeah,
that pain point, right?
yeah. And to be fair, I'm sure there are people who get along just fine.
Absolutely.
And they
Communication
manage,
is-
but you've got, but if you're offering enhancements to the feature set, that's great. Okay,
Absolutely.
so what now on the portal side of things, what might the
So on the portal side, I would ask you what your use cases are. What are you using Smartsheet for? And you might say, well, I have a ticketing system, so it's a support desk tracker. And I say, okay, great, how do you capture that? Well, I send the form to a person and they fill out the form. And then I say, okay, great, how do you provide visibility into that? And you say, well, maybe I have a dashboard. Okay, well, what if they have to input more information? Well, I'd send an update request. And while all of that is great, if I put myself in the customer's shoes that made that request for support, I'd want to have a portal where I can actually see live updates of my tasks or anything that you might need for me to help resolve that request for more information or whatever I need to kind of close that out with you. So we would give that use case a portal that would have the ability to find a service catalog or a request catalog or just simply submit requests directly. And then in my view, I would be able to track all the different requests. I would only see maybe like the title, what my status is on that request, if information is needed from me. I can then respond, provide attachments for context, all in one portal. And the beauty of the portal is that's one use case, but I can add all my use cases to that same portal or create offshoot portals to where now that's the employee hub, that workforce hub, where the non-technical user can go to interact with all your solutions to get their job done quickly and easily.
Excellent, excellent. I had no idea. We've been running together for months. I had no idea. You know what, Frank? I'm going to instruct someone in my IT organization to take a meeting with your team to talk about this.
Absolutely. Let's sprint to the finish.
Any final thoughts on what people need to know about Kronos or Huddle?
That's a great question. So,
how have you guys been in business? Let's get some bona fides
how
down.
long?
Yeah.
We've been established the business in 2011 out of
Okay.
San Diego.
Okay.
And we've been able to grow the team across the whole country. So after COVID, we've all gone remote, and we're staying remote. So we're happy to bring anybody on the team that can provide any service experience to our customers and potential customers. We want to make sure that we bring the right people and industry experts to make sure that not only can we build the tool set, but we want to build the process around that tool set, the change around that tool set to make sure the adoption rate is high, because adoption rate for us means a successful implementation, right?
Fantastic. Frank Geraci,
Yep.
President, Cronos Consulting. Go look up Huddle. See if it makes sense for you. I get excited by this specifically because it's interesting to see. It's one thing to hear from customers. It's another thing to hear from actual folks from Smartsheet. But when you realize that the platform is powerful enough to attract an ecosystem of quality companies like Kronos, that is a ringing endorsement of a platform.
Absolutely.
When I see it. When no one is interested in what you're doing, you have a problem. There's a lot of people here who are interested in what Smartsheet is doing. So with that, I've got to say it's been a great day here at Smartsheet ENGAGE in Seattle. Thanks for tuning in to 6.5 Media on the Road. I'm Dave Nicholson. Look forward to seeing you again soon.